So this is our this is the elementary rules of usage from Elements of Style number 4. Okay. However, this is our 6th lesson because we spent 3 lessons on number 3. Okay. So for this one, we'll just take one lesson today. Okay. Number 4 is place a comma before a conjunction introducing an independent clause. Okay. So a lot of grammar lingo there. We need to know exactly what that's saying by looking at a few key words. Okay, first of all, conjunction. Okay, conjunction. 3 types of conjunctions. Okay, coordinating, correlative, subordinating. Really, for this rule, all you need to know is the coordinating conjunctions. Okay, so those are there's 7 of them, right? And, for, or, nor, but. Let's see, yet. And so. Okay, so there should be 7 there. Okay, if you arrange them right, you can get the acronym fanboys. Okay, but these are the coordinating conjunctions that really have to do with this rule. Okay, so to know those, you know then the first step of how to enact this rule, to put it into practice. Okay, so a conjunction introducing an independent clause. Okay, now we talked a lot about independent clauses over the last 3 lessons, dealing with rule number 3. Okay, and that was in relation to subordinate clauses, right? An independent clause can stand on its own. A subordinate clause is dependent upon, right? That's why we also call it a dependent clause, dependent upon the independent clause. Okay, so we talked last time about how you need to have a comma if a subordinate clause begins the sentence, and then an independent clause follows it. Okay, here what we're dealing with is really 2 independent clauses that are brought together, okay? Or separated, you could say, okay? You can separate 2 independent clauses in various ways. First of all, most obviously, you could just put a period between them, right? Okay? So like for this example right here, I could say, the situation is perilous, period. There's still one chance of escape. 2 independent sentences or independent clauses, it's grammatically correct, okay? Another way to do it is the one that this is talking about, okay? And that is to put a comma and a conjunction, right? So what you see right here, comma, but, is that in action, right? The situation is perilous, comma, but, okay, there is still one chance of escape. So if you didn't have this comma, you would obviously be ignoring this rule, which requires you to put a comma before a conjunction that introduces an independent clause. This is an independent clause, right? So you have to have, if you're going to combine it with another independent clause, it has to be a comma and a conjunction, or a semicolon. Okay, that's another option. But this rule mainly deals with the comma and conjunction rule. Okay, so one other thing that I want to mention, which is important here. Okay, and let's use a different sentence. Okay. Is when you have the same subject for both independent clauses. Okay, so for this one, situation, that's the subject for the first independent clause. Okay, and here this is an inverted sentence, so one chance is the subject for the second one. Okay, so there's really 2 different subjects for 2 different sentences. However, you could have 2 different independent clauses with just one subject. Okay, so let's look at an example of that. Like, if I said something like, he is well qualified and has great ability. Okay? So technically what we have here are 2 independent clauses. It's just that he is assumed in this second clause, right? He's well qualified, independent clause. He has great ability, independent clause. But because you only have one subject here, you have a conjunction, but this is the exception to the rule. You don't need to have a comma there because you're sharing the subject over the 2 independent clauses. Okay? Now, the exception to that exception, okay, would be if we were using the conjunction but. Okay? Okay? Why? Because usually when we use that conjunction, we're setting up some sort of opposition, right? He's nice, but this, right? We can go, but this. It usually sets up an opposition. Okay? So obviously, we would need to change the content matter. He's well qualified, but has great ability. That doesn't make sense, right? So we change it to something like, but has poor social skills or whatever, okay? So then, because there is this opposition, one is positive, one is negative, you're going to put a comma there just to add that separation, right? Because it obviously is very separate. One is good, one is bad, okay? So that would be the exception to that second rule when you have a subject that's shared with both independent clauses, okay? But all in all, if we come back to this, you're safe following this rule. Place a comma before a conjunction introducing an independent clause. Of course, in order to put that into practice, you need to be able to know what a conjunction is to identify it, and you need to be able to identify an independent clause, okay?